Howdy my totally tubular gamers, and we're back with another ranking video, and today we're doing another Mario ranking video, but today we're going to do a big one. Today we're going to be ranking every Mario game released for the Nintendo Switch. Now when it comes to Mario, you know Mario, your dog, your mom, your aunt, your sister, your grandma, your friend, your best friend, your adopted friends, whoever, they all know who Mario is. He's even getting a movie now. Now, with Mario being Nintendo's flagship character and series, there's a lot of Mario games. There's well over 100 Mario games at this point, and, well, I haven't played every single Mario game, at least not yet. But you know what I have played? All of the Mario games released for the Nintendo Switch. Since the Switch's release, we've been getting Mario game after Mario game after Mario game, and I doubt the train's gonna stop. And so today, thought we'd talk about every Mario game released for the Nintendo Switch, rank them worst to best, give them all little reviews, and we're really going to see how they all stack up against each other. Now, I'm going to lay down a couple ground rules for this, so you can't say I'm missing a game, even though you're probably going to say it anyway. We're only going to be looking at new releases for the Switch. So a number of Mario games have made their way to the Switch that weren't originally on the Switch. We're not going to be including any of those. So no Super Mario 3D All-Stars, no new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, no Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, sadly no Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, even though that is great. No Nintendo Switch Online games, none of those Virtual Console games or older games that have been ported on. The only exception I'm making is for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because I think they've actually added a ton of new stuff with all the DLC and all of that, to the point where I'm like, you know what, we're just going to include that one. But also, it's Mario Kart. We're also not including any of Mario's Friends games, so there's no Yoshi games here, there's no Donkey Kong games here, there's no Wario games here. Luigi gets a pass, though, he can be here. Okay, so with all that in mind, there's still a ton of Mario games for the Switch that I'm going to be looking at today. And you know, when it comes to hot takes, when it comes to my opinion, you let me know down below why you don't agree, why you do agree, why you think I'm invalidated immediately, or whatever you want to say. But before you talk some trash to me, at least tell me what your favorite Mario game on the Switch is. We're going to be ranking these based on quality, my memories, yada yada yada, you know how it goes. I actually played all of these games at release. I guess I'm just a huge Mario fan, and yeah, played them all at release. Like, share, comment, sub, all that good stuff. This is a long enough intro as it is. Let's just get right into it. What do I think is the worst Mario game on the Nintendo Switch? And here we have Super Mario Bros. 35, which is one of the worst Mario games probably of all time now, for one simple reason. The game doesn't go online anymore. It was shut down. The game was a multiplayer only battle royale where everybody played through Super Mario Bros. And would compete against each other, and when it did go online, you could actually have some fun with this game. It could get pretty hectic. It's the original Super Mario Bros., but we're all competing against each other. I like the Tetris version, Tetris 99, Pac-Man 99. This was a cool one. I don't know why Nintendo was insistent on taking it down. They took it down. You can't play it anymore. You can't download it anymore. There's nothing to play. There's no single player, nothing like that, which is a real shame. And that's why it's one of the worst Mario games. There's nothing to even play anymore. If you could go online, it would definitely be higher on the list, but you can't. And so here we have one of the more unique games on the list, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, releasing initially in 2020. Now this game is pretty different from most games, period. It's different from the other Mario Kart games, that's for sure. If you don't know, this game would come with a toy radio-controlled car to race around the player's home, and these little cars had cameras on them so they could stream video to the video game. So basically the game would like scan your house, and then it would make a virtual track for the little car to drive on, and you'd drive around using the remote control, which is in the game. And it's really interesting, and it's a really cool use of augmented reality, but I just don't think there's all that much to the actual game itself, though. Like, it seems like everything kind of was reliant on the tech rather than the game itself, and I don't have a ton of experience with this game. I've not played a ton of it. I don't even own it because I live in a tiny ass little 500 square foot apartment. We don't got no room for something like this. I've only played with family and friends, and you know, it was fine enough then, but the gameplay didn't exactly seem to have a ton going for it. And then, you know, the limiting factor of actually needing room to play this game really make it so this game doesn't rank very high on my list. I'd rather play just about any other Mario Kart instead of this one. It's pretty cool. Again, it is pretty cool, and I'd love to see this kind of come back in maybe a more virtual reality rather than augmented, but we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. This game is interesting, and I will leave it at that. And so here we have Mario Strikers Battle League, releasing in 2022, developed by Next Level Games. It is the third game in the Mario Strikers series, the series of soccer, football games, whatever you want to call it. And you know, while I've always liked the Mario Strikers games and I have some really fun memories with the older ones, this new game just really didn't do it for me, and I just didn't really walk away all that satisfied with this game. Now, if you've never played a Mario Strikers game, what it is a 5 versus 5 soccer game where the game just completely drops anything close to realism for a very chaotic, over-the-top, cartoony but gritty experience. Like, the game just is crazy level soccer. This isn't no FIFA or anything like that. The game still is the basic rules of soccer where you pass the ball back and forth and are trying to score a goal, but the game takes many, we'll say, liberties with the sport. You can tackle people, you can tackle them into walls, there's items, there's charge shots, super shots, and of course you get to play as a bunch of Mario characters. They all have different stats, attributes, and all that fun stuff. Now, I think the core gameplay is pretty solid. It's pretty decent to good here, and I'd say it's like just as good as the other Mario Strikers games. Unfortunately, though, that's where I really think the positives end for this game. Again, while I like the gameplay, I think there's a lot of depth and it can actually get really competitive in multiplayer. There just isn't a whole lot to this game outside of that core gameplay, especially when the game was released. Not only is there a really small character roster with some really interesting gear upgrades, I'll call them just interesting, they exist, they don't really add a ton to the game, but there's really not a lot of stages, not a lot of modes, and basically like no single player. The single player was just really undercooked. There's really not a lot here. Like, don't get me wrong, the old Mario Strikers games didn't have a lot to the single player either, but they had more than this. This game really just, again, focuses on the multiplayer, and I think the multiplayer is fun, but there's just not a lot of modes, there's not a lot of variety here, and it just kind of got old, and I feel like even a month or two after this game was released, and everyone was kind of already over it. Now, I'm not saying that the game is bad or not fun or you can't enjoy it, because I've had fun with this game. I think it's great at parties. It goes up to like 8 people, and you know, it's Mario Strikers. It's always going to be fun, but to be completely honest, I'd rather play either of the other Mario Strikers over this game. I think those games had more combat, more depth, and more to do. And Nintendo said they were going to add more to this game, more characters, more this, that. I feel like they really didn't add anything that mattered, to be honest with you, other than Daisy. They just didn't really add all that much to it, and then they're done with the updates, and I feel like this game has already been forgotten about. And it's a shame, because I really do think that the Switch has some of the best Mario sports games, and this is not one of them. Should you play it now? I mean, if it's on like a heavy discount, maybe check it out, but if you've played the other Mario Strikers games, or you own some of the older Mario Strikers games, stick with those games, honestly. Those games are more fun than this one. And so here we have Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 releasing in 2019. It's based on the 2020 Summer Olympics that, you know, totally happened in 2020 and nothing changed that at all. I love the Olympics when they happened in 2020. Anyway, Mario and Sonic, you know this series. This is not the second, third, but fourth time they're doing the Summer Olympics, so you know there's going to be some repeats, but what we got here is a pretty standard Olympics minigame collection. And you know, I gotta say, out of all the Mario and Sonic games, this game probably has the most refined Olympics gameplay. Like, these are actually probably the best these minigames have ever been. You don't have to play with some gimmicky ass control either. You can just straight play with a Pro Controller, which is nice. And I gotta say, most of these were decently enjoyable. Some of them are clearly better than others, but a lot of the ones that came back from the old games, these are probably their best incarnations. The game at least looks the best. Like, the presentation's actually really solid. The game has a bunch of personality also, especially with its characters who now dress up for the occasion, so Eggman's not going to be swimming in his regular gear like he was in some of the older games, which is always funny. The game is supposed to excel as a party game, but I'll be real, I've never gotten anybody to play this game with me. I just couldn't convince any of my friends who'd be like, yeah, let's play this new Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. They'd rather play the old ones with me, and you know, fair point, fair point. That's why this game is actually like a legit story mode, and it's more than like an hour. It's like 4 or 5 hours, and it actually is characters and a real story, and it's about Mario and Sonic teaming up and getting sucked into this machine called the Olympic Machine 64, which is pretty funny. And you go through all of the events here. There's some of these more classic events where Mario and Sonic are 8-bit and 16-bit respectively. These are great. This looks like something I would see when I was like a kid on YouTube, and now it's like just straight up in an actual game. Like, it doesn't mesh well at all. It's super choppy like the original games. There's actually a good amount of detail here to make this good. And these events are fine. They're nothing too special. They're like as good as the regular events. I wouldn't say they're really all that much better though, or even any better at all. Usually in Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, the dream events are really where the game comes together to make something great. Like, forget the regular Olympic Games, let's do these crazy dream events where they really lean in on Mario and Sonic. And this game, unfortunately, this game doesn't really have any. It only has like 2 or 3, and one of them doesn't even have a theme to Mario or Sonic. And you know, these dream events are fine. There's only 2 or 3 of them though. Like, didn't the Winter Games have like 10? The dream events were why I wanted to play these games with my friends, to be honest with you, and now that there's only 3, it's like, well, no wonder they don't want to play with me. Look, the story mode is fine enough. The game had online, but good luck finding anybody online, and the dream events are really lacking. Despite all that, I'd say that this is still a decent minigame collection. I'd say this is probably one of the best Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, just because the Olympic Games that are in there are actually pretty refined. The story mode's pretty cool, and there's a lot of fun throwbacks and some decent fan service. I wish that the dream events were better, but oh well. At least the game looks nice and it plays relatively nice. I would really only recommend this if you're a fan of the series and haven't played it, or you know, you really wanted to see those 2020 Olympics. And so here we have Super Mario Party releasing in 2018, developed by Gamecube. This was really going to be the return to form that Mario Party absolutely needed. After so many games where they really just kind of ignored the formula and tried to create something new, and it just really didn't work out over and over, and people were getting pretty tired of it, they finally just said, screw it, we're just going to try to go back to really what made Mario Party to begin with. And while I think this game was a step in the right direction, I think that compared to the other Mario Party games, this game was pretty lacking. So yeah, this game returns to the traditional turn-based Mario Party style of gameplay for the first time in over a decade. The last time that this had shown up was like Mario Party DS in 2008. It had been a very long time since a traditional Mario Party game had shown up. They always had like the car or the partners or something different entirely. It's like, no, people just want that traditional style of gameplay where the 4 of you move across a board, you play a mini game every turn, and there's a bunch of bullshit that's involved. Like, that's what the people want. That's why the series got popular in the first place, and it's glad to see that it might have taken them a number of games, but they figured out that's what people really wanted from Mario Party. In this game, like I said, it is a return to form, but they try to add a few new things to it that I don't think work as well as traditional Mario Party elements. Don't get me wrong, when you're just going across the board and you're just playing mini games trying to get the star, I think the game is absolutely still a blast, and even in the other modes I've still had fun with this game. The game does try to do a couple new things with it. They add these character specific dice blocks, and these are just unique dice blocks you can use. Like, Mario has a slightly higher chance of getting 3s, Peach can only roll even, or Bowser could even lose coins. There's also these allies you can have join you, and they also get dice blocks. This game really likes its dice blocks, and yeah, it's a unique gimmick, that's for sure, but did I think it was all that good? No, not really. I don't think it added all that much. It just made it so you hit more dice blocks, you have more options, but it didn't really enhance the gameplay. At least I didn't think it really enhanced the gameplay, especially when playing with friends. Something I do think that enhanced the gameplay, especially with my friends, was actually the character roster. I thought the character roster might be the best of like any Mario Party game. There's a bunch of great characters here that I didn't even realize I wanted to play in Mario Party. Like Goomba, oh, Goomba's great, and I think the character roster is really good. Unfortunately, I can't say the same about the boards. I think the boards in this game are really lackluster. They're all pretty small, especially with all the small dice blocks, and you just don't really move around all that much on them, and then there's just not a lot of them to begin with. The couple boards that are in the game all have some kind of gimmick really to them, and there's just not enough traditional boards, at least in my opinion, and I found myself getting pretty bored of the boards really quickly, actually, more so than really almost any other traditional Mario Party game. But how are the minigames? Do they at least utilize the Switch pretty well? And you know, I think the minigames are actually pretty decent here. I wouldn't say they're some of the series' best, but they do utilize the Switch and the Joy-Cons pretty well, and I thought that they were more than fun enough. There's a couple modes centered around them as well, and that was cool, like the River Survival mode. This was a fun mode. This was honestly the best side mode Mario Party's had in a while. The only thing was, once you've done it like a few times, you've really seen everything that there is to see, and you probably won't spend more than an hour or two on this one. There was also a single player campaign called Challenge Road, but I really didn't mess around with this one all too much. It seemed about as silly and just kind of lackluster as other Mario Party single player modes, but I mean, it exists. Now, something I remember they really hyped up at launch was the fact that you could actually play online. First time you could play online in a Mario Party game, and I remember at least when the game launched, the online was terrible. You could only play like 10 mini games and it would like randomly choose one of them. It was bad. Many years later, they actually added everything to the online. You could play all the boards, all the mini games, all that, but too little too late in my opinion. Look, Super Mario Party, it was the kick in the ass that the series absolutely needed after so many bad games, and this really was, again, the best Mario Party game in like a decade. But I still think like all the old ones are better. I just don't really think this game's new gimmicks add all that much. The boards are really lackluster, the mini games are pretty alright. And even though I've had a ton of sessions with friends and family on this game, I just don't think it's as good as the other Mario Party games. It's still a fun time, and if you're looking for a decent Mario Party game, a decent modern Mario Party game I might add, yeah, this is one to play, but I still would recommend almost any other Mario Party above this. And here we have Mario Golf Super Rush, the latest in the Mario Golf series, releasing in 2021. Now, when this game came out, I had an absolute blast with it. I played a ton of this game. It was the most fun I had had with any golf game in years. And you know, looking back a couple years later, yeah, this is still a pretty good game, and it's a great Mario Golf game, but I do wish it was a little better, to be honest with you. An area though where I think the game is absolutely not lacking is the gameplay. I think when it comes to golfing video games, this is some of the best golfing mechanics you'll find in a video game. I'd say it's probably the best golfing mechanics in the entire Mario Golf series. Like, I have nothing but high praise for it. Obviously, you know, it's not super realistic, but it's not trying to be. It's Mario. It does have a little bit of realism to it. It does have some physics. Wind comes into play and slopes and all that fun golf terminology, but the game still is pretty casual. It's one of those easy to pick up and play, but actually really difficult to master, and I think that when it comes to accessibility, this is the most accessible of any of the Mario Golf games, which is already a point in its favor. The game brought the handheld single-player RPG mode to the home console finally. I'd been waiting forever for this, and you know, the single-player, it was pretty whatever. It's pretty short, but I still had a fun time with it, and I thought it was a good change of pace. There's a bunch of challenges. You get to walk around the overworld and interact with NPCs. There's like side objectives. There's even boss fights, funny enough. I thought this was pretty alright. It was the multiplayer though where I think this game really was at its peak, playing with a bunch of friends. There's a number of different modes here. Obviously, there's regular golf where you watch each other go one at a time, but you can all golf at the same time. There's even like a race mode where you can like speed up and you can knock people out, and it's whoever really gets to the hole first. And you know, this is fine enough, but I personally just kind of like the traditional golf. There's even this like stadium mode where you all compete against each other, and I just never really messed around with this. Now, when the game launched, there wasn't a ton of courses, but they did add a couple post-launch, and I'd say there's a fair amount now. I just wish that they added more modes that I guess I actually wanted to play. Things like that the old Mario Golfs had, like some kind of mini golf, or a ring mode, or a coin mode, or something like that, or more multiplayer options. I don't know, I just wanted more from this game. Like, even post-launch, I feel like what we got just, it wasn't enough. Don't get me wrong though, I had a blast with this game. I had a ton of fun, and I think it's one of the best modern Mario sports games. I just wanted more from it, but I can say, if you like golfing games at all, this is a must play. Or if you're just into Mario, this might be worth checking out. And so here we have Super Mario Maker 2 releasing in 2019. So Super Mario Maker, it really is what the title implies. If you don't know Super Mario Maker, really what it is a tool set to make Mario levels. So a lot of the game is user created content. However, Super Mario Maker 2 does actually have a quote campaign mode where you get to actually play through some stuff Nintendo made while they tutorialize you on how to use the tools. Super Mario Maker lives and dies by its community. This game is nothing without its community, so it's a good thing that the community is pretty solid for it. Even nowadays, it still is decently active. The game has a number of different 2D Mario games to it in terms of style, controls, all of that. There's the original Super Mario Bros., there's Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, New Super Mario Bros. U, and then Mario Maker 2 would add Super Mario 3D World as well, having it be a 2.5D platformer. And you know, I think all the styles are pretty cool. I was hoping maybe as like DLC they would add Super Mario Land or Super Mario Bros. 2, but they never did, unfortunately. But you know, we still got a pretty good library here. You can still access all the assets from all those original games and really create your own levels. I am never really too creative when it comes to video games. I create videos on games, not the levels and games themselves. Games like Little Big Planet, Super Mario Maker, and even those old Hot Wheels games, I never really created anything. I just kind of downloaded the most downloaded user created content and played that. And I think for Super Mario Maker, you can have a ton of fun with this game. Some people have made some awesome levels. Some people have made levels that I think even Nintendo should take notice of. But then we really have what a lot of the levels are in this game, and that is super difficult, like really difficult levels that require an insane level of precision, and you know, those are always going to be there. There was always Kaizo, Super Mario, but this is pretty good too. Now, me personally, all these super hard levels don't really tickle my pickle, but you know, if you like it, you like it. I think when it comes to what you're going to get out of Super Mario Maker is how much you want to play those custom made levels. If you really want to go in there, play like all the best levels, have just a ton of fun with some of these, go ahead and do it. But if you're looking for a more traditional Mario experience, you're not going to find it here. But the game isn't trying to do that. Super Mario Maker 2's like Nintendo developed single player campaign kind of mode. It's really nothing special. It's nothing like crazy. Sure, there is some new stuff here, but it really is all made with just the Mario Maker toolset. And I think, again, the toolset is great. I think it's great that we're giving people the ability to make levels really easily like this on accessible consoles and not needing some kind of fancy computer or even some in-depth knowledge of coding to make these levels. I think that's great. And more power to the people. But me personally, I had a bit of fun with this game, and I don't really come back to it these days. In fact, I haven't touched it in a very long time, actually. But I can say that if this is something you're looking for, if you love 2D Mario, this is probably worth checking out, because you're going to get so much 2D Mario with it. You're going to get endless levels, legit endless levels, and there's so many good ones too. And so, yeah, if you love 2D Mario, totally check it out if you haven't already. And so here we have Mario Tennis Aces releasing in 2018 for the Switch. This is the latest Mario Tennis game, and I was pretty hyped up for this one. Outside of a little time with Ultra Trash, this was my first Mario Tennis game in quite some time, and I had some high expectations with this game, but it absolutely delivered to be not only one of my favorite Mario Tennis games, but one of my favorite Mario sports games in general. I had so much fun with this game when it came out, and even coming back just a couple years later, yeah, this game is still a blast. I guess the first place to start would be the presentation. I think the game looks pretty good. It's clear that it uses some of Ultra Trash's assets, but aside from that, I think it does look pretty great. The actual tennis gameplay is arguably the best tennis gameplay that the series has ever seen. I actually really enjoy this. I think that it's not only really easy to pick up and play, but it really is hard to master, and there's a lot of strategy that can go into playing this game. There's a lot of tech actually with the characters too. They all feel really unique. They're all really different. And I think that this might be like the best tennis mechanics I've ever played in a game. Obviously, there's those sim tennis games that are probably a little bit more in depth than this, but in terms of an arcadey tennis game, I don't think really it gets better than this. Like, it just feels great, it's incredibly satisfying, and it's just above all else fun. Like, I really have had a blast with the tennis mechanics in this game. And then this game actually has some content. It's got a good amount of characters, especially after the updates. There's a fair amount of characters here. They also have characters that you like never get to play as in Mario games, and I really like that. Characters like Chain Chomp or Spike or Koopa Paratroopa or Boom Boom or Kamek or Pauline or Dry Bowser that are just either rarely in Mario games or you never have gotten to play as them until now, like Chain Chomp, which I just love. I think the game has a fair amount of quartz to it. A lot of it does have Mario flair, and I actually really did enjoy it on that front. When it comes to the modes, there's actually quite a bit of content here. The game does have a full-fledged single-player mode where you get Thanos-style Infinity Stones for like tennis, which is pretty funny, and I actually thought this single player mode was pretty decent. It actually does have a number of mini games to it as well. It's not all just straight tennis versus CPUs, and so there's some variety here, and I generally did have a good time with it. It isn't the longest, it's only a couple hours long, but you know, I thought it was absolutely a highlight, and I just appreciate the Mario flair being there. There's other mini games here, which is great as well. And then there's really all the multiplayer madness. Like, this is where the most fun is the multiplayer. And I've actually had a ton of fun with the multiplayer in this game, not only locally, but online as well. The online multiplayer was really solid for me. There was actually like almost no lag the entire time I played it back when it came out. And even nowadays, it's still really good. It's really fun. There's plenty of tournaments you could do. There is actually people still playing the game all these years later. The multiplayer just absolutely kicks some ass. And it really brought me back to when I was a kid and playing Mario. games with friends, like, because it really was just a fun time, and we would get ultra competitive about it too. There's just so many nuances to the tennis gameplay itself. The trick shots, or how you can slow down time, just the amount of different ways you can hit the ball back and forth. It's actually a lot more complex than it looks, and I really did enjoy it. And I think that if you like tennis games and you haven't played this one, not only is this the most accessible out of all the tennis games, but it really is one of the best, and I think that it is a great time. And so here we have Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, developed by Ubisoft and releasing in 2017 for the Switch. And you know, this game kind of just came out of nowhere. I remember reading rumors about it forever, but then it just got announced one day, and I remember trying it at E3 and actually going, this is pretty great. I'm going to check this out. And after playing through the whole game back when it came out, it was actually pretty solid. This was way better than it had any right to be, and I know a lot of people were really skeptical because the Rabbids were involved, but no, this is legit and actually good turn-based tactical RPG. If you like XCOM, you will absolutely like this game. Sure, it's nowhere near as serious or difficult as XCOM is, but I actually still thought that this game was pretty great. The plot's about as basic as you would expect from a Rabbids game, where they're just kind of screwing around with their devices and they end up getting sucked into the Mario world and they've got to all combine forces to save everyone. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you came to this game expecting like Mario RPG levels of dialogue and humor, you're going to be pretty disappointed, as the game doesn't really do anything like that. I mean, it's charming and the Rabbids are actually not annoying. They're not screaming the whole time, but I wouldn't say the game is really funny or all that endearing, but it's fine enough for what it is. Where this game really excels is the turn-based combat, where again it is very similar to XCOM. You move on a grid, you take cover, you take shots with your guns. Yes, Mario finally has his guns. And you have a bunch of special abilities depending on the character. There's actually a number of characters in this game, more than just regular Rabbids and Mario characters. There's actually Rabbid versions of Mario characters, which is cool. And you know, all of them are actually incredibly different, and there's a bunch of other little elements in there that I think actually make it really unique from XCOM, even if you can't just say, oh, it's Mario XCOM. Like, there's a bunch of unique status effects, there's movement abilities where you can like dash into enemies if you get close enough, there's other objectives other than just defeat all the enemies, like where you gotta defend a toad or get to a certain point. And there's even skill trees, so you can even further customize each of the characters. What I really like about Mario plus Rabbids is how digestible it is. Now, XCOM can get really stressful, time-consuming, and just really difficult. Like, especially XCOM 2, it just gets really difficult. And Mario Rabbids is not like that. It is a lot more casual, user-friendly, and you don't feel like you're going to die every single turn like it gets to in XCOM. And it just makes the experience a lot more easier to pick up and play, which I'm sure was the goal with it being Mario. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of people that are either typing in the comments or ready to type, you just suck at the game, lol, XCOM's way better than this. And you know, I really do like XCOM, but sometimes I just want to have like a little bit more of a casual tactical game. I don't need a game where I'm sweating bullets 24/7 like those games, and I gotta say Mario plus Rabbids is really good at that. The game also has some pretty interesting multiplayer. It had a really cool DLC with Donkey Kong of all characters. There is some time where you're not in the turn-based tactical combat and you're just kind of exploring around this world. It's very linear and there's not all that much to it outside of the occasional puzzle. I never really cared too much for when you're not in the battles. I thought it was a bit lackluster. But it really is mostly the tactical combat, and I think it's actually really fun. It is still challenging, obviously not crazy difficult, but it is still challenging. It will still test you, and I still think it is really engaging. I think the pacing's good. I think the length's good. I have no problem saying that if you like tactical games, or even if you're not really a big tactical person, but you want to just try it, I really think you should try Mario Rabbids. It also goes super cheap since it's Ubisoft, and so I have no problem saying, just go check it out. And here we have Paper Mario the Origami King, the latest in the Paper Mario series, releasing for the Switch in 2020. I got this when it came out, was really excited, heart of the pandemic, didn't have a lot going on, and was like, hell yeah, new Paper Mario. And you know what? This game is actually pretty solid. I know there are plenty of people that don't like this game because, you know, it's not like the old Paper Mario games, but I think if you just look at this game for what it is, I actually thought it was pretty good. So the game is about Mario and Luigi being invited to the Origami Festival by Peach. And you know, it's supposed to be just a peaceful festival, but when they get there, everybody's been turned into origami and brainwashed by King Ollie, a sentient origami figure. Bowser is here as well. He's been folded into a square and most of his minions have been turned into origami and are brainwashed as well. Mario rescues Ollie's sister Olivia, who was imprisoned for her betrayal, and Bowser, and the three of them escape. And really it's up to Mario and Olivia to stop Ollie and save the Mushroom Kingdom. I think the story's actually pretty good here. I think the origami gimmick actually totally works. I liked it more than the stickers, I liked it more than the paint, and I think the game actually does a lot of interesting things with it, not only in its story but in its gameplay as well. I think the story is good, and I think that all of the characters are pretty good. There's not as many original characters as I'd like, and there's a little too many Toads here, not as many as Color Splash, but there's at least some other characters here, and the writing is actually pretty good. This is maybe the funniest of all the Paper Mario games. Like, I thought the writing was actually really good. When it comes to the story, the plot, the characters, the writing, and the general presentation, I think the Origami King is one of the best that the Paper Mario series has ever seen. I think it's actually pretty good. When it comes to the gameplay, it's, again, pretty different from the old Paper Mario games, but at least, you know, exploring around the areas is the same, where you explore a generally linear open world designed to look like paper and cardboard. You can interact with NPCs, you can buy stuff, you can solve puzzles. In this game, Mario has this ability called the Fold Arms, which is where these big stretchy arms come out and he's able to reveal stuff in the environment, like by ripping stuff off or smashing stuff. And I thought that this was cool enough. I think exploring the overworld has always been one of the better parts of Paper Mario, and it's just as good here. The collectible is Toads of all things, and you really got to unfold them with the hammer, which is always funny. And again, I think that exploring the overworld is a decent time here. When it comes to the battles, that's where things get, again, a little shaky. I think this is the biggest point of contention with this game, is this whole ring combat, where really it's about Mario lining up all the enemies so he can defeat them all in one fell swoop. Otherwise you're taking them out one at a time, which takes forever. And you know, at first there is a little bit of strategy here, trying to figure out how you can get all the enemies lined up so you can defeat them all in one fell swoop. It can actually be a little bit of fun here, and there is some puzzle elements to it. However, after you do enough of these battles, you realize that there's only a couple variants and you can kind of use the same strategy for every single one. At least the boss fights really do mix it up, where you have to just try to get to the boss. And you know, these are real world objects like Color Splash, and I think that these are actually much better than how Color Splash did it, minus the meat boss. That boss is great in Color Splash. But here I think that the bosses were actually the best part of the combat. I will say I do prefer this ring combat over anything Sticker Star or Color Splash had. I didn't really care for the cards or the stickers or anything like that. I think that this is much better, even if it is a bit more simple when you know the strategy. But I would still say it's much more enjoyable, and it's just a lot more tolerable. I wish there were partners, I wish there was leveling up, and I wish there were more RPG elements. Yes, I do. But what we have here, again, it's fine. I thought it wasn't amazing, but at least I had some enjoyment with it, as opposed to really nothing. I didn't feel indifference, which is how I kind of felt before. And you know, the battle system, I know it has plenty of detractors, and it's not the ideal battle system for a Paper Mario game, but you know, at least it's a step in the right direction. It's something different. And good, I might add. At least it is good, or decent, or fine, or alright, or mid, or you know what, it's passable, and I'll give it that. I think the presentation for this game is one area where it's better than passable. It is fantastic. I really love how this game looks. The music's actually pretty solid, and I actually really did enjoy my time with Origami King. Despite the interesting, I'll say, battle system, I think the game has enough other elements that are good to great that really make it up, that lead me to saying that I think you should play this game. Even if you aren't the biggest Paper Mario person, or you wrote this game off because it wasn't like the old ones, just give it a shot. And here we have Mario Party Superstars releasing in 2021. Now, Gamecube looked at Super Mario Party and went, you know, people liked that it was more traditional and like the old Mario parties, so we're just gonna go back to the old Mario parties. We're gonna go back to that original formula, and you know what? The game's actually pretty good. The game's actually pretty great. It's one of the best Mario Party games.
It's what we wanted all along!
The game really goes back to the original formula in its purest form and adds a bunch of modern sensibilities to it and makes it a little less evil to make it not only the most accessible Mario Party to date, but one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had with any of the games in the series. It's like, wow, they actually went back to the original formula, and what do you know? It's actually gold still. It's almost like that was the winning formula, and they shouldn't have veered off and tried a bunch of other things that didn't work. But you know what? I'm not bitter, I swear. You know what? I'm just glad we have a great modern Mario Party game, and we don't gotta like break out the 64 or the GameCube to play a good Mario Party. We can actually just play one on the Switch. So the game is essentially a remake, as they remade 5 boards from the original N64 trilogy and a total of 100 minigames curated from previous entries in the series. This game really makes Mario Party the top 100 like just totally irrelevant now. Like, why would you want to just play the minigames when now you can play the classic boards as well? And you know what, the board selection, it's actually pretty solid here. I think it is pretty good. The ones from Mario Party 1 and 2 are great, and then even Mario Party 3 is no slouch either. I think they chose probably the best board for Mario Party 3, at least the one that I had the least frustration with. And you know, these boards are just as great as they were in those original N64 games. Now though, they look and sound amazing. The graphics and really the presentation is superb. The music is great in this also. The music in the N64 games like really slapped, and here it's pretty good too. And then when it comes to the minigames, yeah, these are some of the best minigames that the Mario Party series has ever seen. Like, there's a ton of amazing ones here. Sure, they don't have every great one, and not all of them are from the N64 games. To be honest, we don't want every single one from the N64 games, but I think that the selection is pretty solid here. A majority of the minigames are from the N64 games. There's a fair amount from the Gamecube games, and then barely anything from Wii and on, and you know what, that's fine with me. I'd rather have most of them be from the first 8 games than anything later. But when it comes to that core gameplay, it really is what Mario Party fans have been craving forever. Just a traditional Mario Party experience with modern graphics and sensibility, where you move around the board, you collect stars, a bunch of BS happens where you can get screwed over, chance time's still here. The game is nowhere near as evil as those N64 games. They're not ready to just kick your shit in and be like, loser, haha. They are certainly a lot nicer, which is appreciated, and it makes it a lot more accessible for not only younger players, but just everybody in general, which I feel like Mario Party always thrived with its accessibility. You can also play Minigame Mountain, where you just play the minigames, and you can play up to 4 players on all of these. But what's great about this game is it actually goes online from launch, I might add, and the online is great. I've never had any issues with the online, and it's like, wow, it took this long, but we can finally play Mario Party online with our friends, not random people, all the minigames, all the boards, and it's a blast. It is so much fun. I've had a ton of fun with this game with family, friends. Like, when I got this game, I was a bit shocked. I was like, oh my god, they actually did it. They did what the Mario Party community, whatever's left of us, has wanted to begin with. Like, a modern new Mario Party that plays just like the old games, but we have full online functionality. The game looks great, sounds great, and it's just a blast. I don't know how it took this long, but you know what, by God, we finally got it. I have no problem recommending the game if you like Mario Party, if you want to try Mario Party, if you've seen the series and you want to get into it, this is a great place to start. It is a great time. I'm really hoping we get some DLC though. The only 5 boards and 100 minigames, and all of it is, from old games. I'm hoping we get some DLC one day in the future, but I'm not holding my breath at this point. Either way though, this is a superb time, and I have nothing but good memories with it already. And so here we have the latest in the Luigi's Mansion series, Luigi's Mansion 3, releasing in 2019, developed by Next Level Games. Now, it really warms my heart to see that Luigi's Mansion is not only still around, but we have a new modern game to play, and it's actually great also. Like the other Luigi's Mansions, this is much more of an action-adventure game rather than your typical Mario affair, complete with platforming and all of that stuff. The plot this time around sees Luigi exploring a haunted hotel and trying to rescue his friends from the ghosts that inhabit it after the group is tricked into visiting it for a vacation by King Boo. And yeah, Luigi's got to stop King Boo, save his friends, and suck up all the ghosts. I think the story's more than solid enough, and I'm gonna give some special props to my main villain, King Boo. They went back to the old King Boo from the original Luigi's Mansion, not that newer looking King Boo. This is like the old scary looking King Boo, and that always made me happy. Now, when it comes to playing this game, if you've played any of the other Luigi's Mansions, you're going to feel pretty right at home here. You still play exclusively as Luigi, or now his counterpart, Gooigi, exploring rooms one at a time, interacting with everything like an adventure game, tons of money, tons of puzzles, and then a bunch of ghosts to suck up with your poltergeist as well. Now, Luigi's Mansion 3 returns to the first game's more open-ended exploration, design, and progression rather than the mission structure of the second game. With 17 floors to explore and almost all of them having unique themes, so the game never feels stale. The game brings back some of the moves from Dark Moon, like the Dark Light device where you can reveal objects that become invisible. You can do this new slam where Luigi slams down the ghosts. You also have a plunger that you can now shoot at not only the environments but the ghosts also and pull on them. And then, like I mentioned 30 seconds ago, you have Gooigi, which is basically this doppelganger of Luigi that he can also control, so you can have two Luigis. This does work with multiplayer as well, where the second player can be Gooigi, and a lot of puzzles involve using both Luigis to figure out how to get through them. There's a lot of puzzles in this game, and I think that a lot of them are actually really good. There's nothing too crazy here, nothing you won't really be able to figure out if you sit there for a couple minutes and observe the environment, and I actually really did have a fun time just solving these puzzles, exploring these rooms, finding all the cash, and getting into the encounters. I can say I think the most creative problem solving and most creative puzzles do involve Gooigi, because he can walk across spiked floors, he can go through gaps like vents and grills, and I think that it just creates a really unique dynamic that the other Luigi's Mansions don't have. It really is a solid gameplay loop, and I think that there's a ton of memorable floors and ghosts that you go up against. Sure, it's not the original game, but you still actually have a bunch of memorable moments here, and I think that by the end of the game it does get pretty epic where you're fighting on the roof again. The game's got a pretty good pace to it, especially with all the exploration, and it's got a good length to it. I had a pretty great time playing this game, and then there's actually some multiplayer as well, where you can play together and suck up ghosts, and I'll be real, I never really played much of this. Like, I thought it was alright, but I only played a few hours at most of it. The whole game is in co-op with Gooigi, which is fun. So, you know, fun for the whole family. I'll also say the presentation is fantastic in this game. This game does look great. It is one of the best looking Mario games like ever. It has so much style and personality, and the music's actually pretty solid too. And all in all, I really don't have a problem recommending this game if you like the old Luigi's Mansions, or you want to get into Luigi's Mansion, or you just want a solid action adventure game, or you like kind of spooky games but you don't like horror games. Then this is a great entry point. This game is not scary, but it definitely does have a few spooky moments to it. But of course it is still a very light-hearted adventure. I really enjoyed this game, and I didn't really want it to end. I was like, wow, this is like a modern, nice, fun Luigi's Mansion that reminds me of my childhood when I played the original game, and again, I have no problem recommending it. Go check it out. And here we have Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope, developed by Ubisoft and released in October of 2022. And as the title implies, it is the follow-up to Mario + Rabbids. Now, I thought Mario + Rabbids was already a pretty good to great game, but this game I think is a bit better actually. The story is actually quite a bit more involved than the first game, where Mario and the Rabbids live peacefully and basically they get attacked by this giant creature known as Cursa. There's actually more characters involved, not just from Mario, but Rabbids as well. And they actually do create some original characters. Ooh, I know, and you know, it's nothing special, it's nothing to write home about, but it's nice that there's some more personality here, there's some more dialogue, some more characters, and just really some more meat to the plot, and I think it is better than the first games. And when it comes to the gameplay, I can say the exact same thing. It really is an improvement on the first games. My biggest issue with the first game was really when you weren't in the battles. It was just kind of this linear affair where you just kind of ran forward, solved the occasional puzzle, and there really just wasn't much going on. Here, they've completely scrapped that. You have much bigger open areas to explore with more than just enemies running around here. There's actually characters to interact with, there's side quests, there's puzzles, and there's really just a lot more going on here. This isn't the typical Ubisoft open world bullshit either. This is nowhere near as big and nowhere near as empty feeling. These worlds are pretty decently designed, there's some decent puzzles in there, and I think the side quests are actually alright, and they actually get you a lot of good rewards here. And it's thanks to this that I think the out-of-combat gameplay is a lot more engaging. Speaking of the combat, it is also decently different. I wouldn't even really say it's like XCOM anymore. It really is just a turn-based tactical RPG. I mean, it's got actually a lot of different things going on. The grid system has been totally removed. You can just kind of walk around freely. Obviously, every character has so much movement, but you can walk freely around. And they doubled down on how much depth this battle system could have. This game has way more depth than the first game did. The first game had a decent amount too, but this game, yeah, no, there's way more. Not only is every character way more unique than they were in the first game, there's more characters, but they also include the sparks, which are these rabid Luma things, and these just add a whole nother layer of depth. They could be simple additions, like they're just buffs for your characters, but they could also be attacks, and then there's a bunch of different status effects. There's a bunch of new ones in here. And I really just gotta say, it is impressive how different all of these characters are from each other. Really, none of them feel the same. Not even ones you would think that would be similar or were kind of similar in the first game, like Peach and Rabbid Peach, completely different. and then introducing characters like Bowser, which I always love when Bowser's in a support role. Like, I think that the combat has just a lot more legs than the first game did, and it's a good thing it does, because this game is quite a bit longer than the first game. Even if you do some of the side content, it is a bit longer. I think the pacing is pretty solid though. I think you move through the worlds at a good pace, and if you do like all the side content, this game is easily double the length of the original game. And honestly, I just had a blast playing through this game. Like, I was a little skeptical. I was like, can they recreate the magic twice? Can they make another good tactical turn-based RPG? Yeah, they absolutely did, and they made it better than the first game, in my opinion. I think that this is a great tactical game. I think it's a good strategy game, and if you're even slightly a fan of the genre, I think that you should really go check this one out. I know Ubisoft these days is like the coldest of the video game companies, and I think this game was a little ignored because of that, and I'll honestly say that it is underrated. I don't see anywhere near as many people talking about it, but I'll talk about it and I'll tell you how great it is. I think it's actually a pretty great game, and yeah, totally worth checking out. And so here we have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe releasing for the Switch in 2017. Now, I know I only wanted to talk about new releases for the Switch in this video, but Mario Kart 8 I had to make a special exception for. One, because it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, not only the most sold Switch game of all time, but the best Mario Kart game. But also, the game has gotten a decent amount of DLC releasing as of late, and it's enough to the point where I'd say, you know what? Yeah, there's enough new stuff here that I can add it onto the Switch list. And I gotta say, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, maybe it's not fair because this is the second release of this game, but this game absolutely just kicks ass. Like, this is just such a fantastic game. This is without a doubt one of the best racing games ever made, and arguably the best kart racer ever made. I don't really know what there is left to say about Mario Kart 8 because people have been singing its praises for like 10 years now. Not only does it control the best of all of the Mario Karts, but it has a ton of characters, a ton of different kart parts, there's a ton of variety with the courses. It has just a shit ton of courses actually now thanks to the DLC, way more so than any other Mario Kart game, and it has a fantastic roster of not only new memorable tracks, but some of the greatest tracks in Mario Kart history are now in this game, thanks to the DLC. There's even a bunch from Tour, so basically a bunch more new ones unless you were one of the few people who actually really likes Tour. They incorporated a bunch of great stuff from Mario Kart 7, like being able to fly, being able to go underwater, but this game adds anti-gravity, which, you know, it doesn't really honestly change all that much from Mario Kart, but it's still cool nonetheless, and it is a good gimmick, and I think it controls well. All of these control well, actually. The game really is just brimming with content with, again, tons of racetracks, characters, kart parts, and modes. You've got more than just the 50, 100, and 150cc. You got like 200cc. Battle mode returns, and it's so much better than the Wii U version. The Wii U version was just bad. They bring back the feather of all items from the original Super Mario Kart. There's some new racetracks. Shine Thief is here in the battle mode. There's some extra new characters, not just for the DLC, but people forget the original game didn't have the Inklings or Link. Well, it did, just not as Breath of the Wild look, which, you know, that's the fancy look everybody likes now. My point is they've just got a lot going on with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and there's a reason that it really is like the most sold Switch game. Well, probably because they pack it in the most, more than any other Switch title, but aside from that, it's because it's the most complete Mario Kart game, just period. And Nintendo damn well knows that, because I don't think we're getting Mario Kart 9 anytime soon, which is kind of crazy to think about it, that we've been playing Mario Kart 8 for like 10 years and it's still like just as relevant nowadays as it was then. It's even more relevant actually now than it was on the Wii U. It was like my favorite Wii U game, and when it came to the Switch, I had to get it immediately and was like, I'm never going back to the Wii U version. This is awesome, and I've played so much of this game. The online's great. I've had a bunch of fun with family, friends, you name it. I bet there's some wild statistic where it's like 40 or 50% of people who own a Switch have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but if for some reason you don't have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I don't know what you're waiting for, because it's just a fantastic time. Maybe you're waiting for all the DLC to come out, which, you know, fair enough, but I have no problem saying that if you like anything to do with Mario, video games, racing, you know, if you just like video games, just check out this game. It's fantastic. And yeah, here we have Super Mario Odyssey, which I think is not only the best 3D Mario game, but the best Mario game on Switch, and arguably like the best Mario game of all time, releasing in 2017. I remember when they announced it, it looked pretty great. I actually played it at E3 and was like, wow, this is gonna be like the best Mario game ever. And you know what? I would argue that it might be the best Mario game ever. Like, what a fantastic game. Super Mario Odyssey is just all in all a superb game. I would argue that it's maybe like the greatest 3D platformer of all time. Seriously, it just has absolutely everything going for it. It has, you know, a pretty substandard plot for a Mario game. Bowser kidnaps Peach, wow. And the new gimmick of Cappy showing up where he can get thrown onto objects and creatures and people and just a bunch of stuff, and then you can control them. This game just has everything you'd want. It has fantastic controls, the best Mario's ever controlled in a video game, an amazing presentation, score, it has a ton of replayability, it's super open-ended like Mario 64 and it expands on that. There are a bunch of different ways to play this game. This game really rewards your movement and exploration. There is just an insane amount of variety with not only the levels and the worlds and the enemies and the bosses, but really just everything. No two areas feel the same. There are hundreds upon hundreds of moons to find, and you don't even have to find them all. For the people who go, oh, it's boring after like 500 or 600, you don't have to get all of them. Like, nobody said you had to 100% them. If you want to 100% this game, go ahead. You're going to be playing it a long time, but you don't have to. You play as much as you like. The game really is as long or short as you like, thanks to just how customizable, I guess, the actual playthrough is. You don't have to get every moon. You get the ones you like. This game brings so many fresh new ideas to not only Mario but 3D platformers as a whole, and it keeps things really interesting, really engaging, and I just couldn't put the game down. And then there's a bunch of fan service to old Mario games, a bunch of throwbacks, some nostalgia. Like, no, it's not even close for me. This is the best Mario game on the Switch. It's the best Mario game you could go out and buy right now. There really is just so much content with this game, more in this game than like any other Mario game. There's just a ton here. This is like one of the only Mario games where coins aren't just borderline useless. You actually need lots of coins to get the costumes, which I've always really liked. These costumes are great. There's a ton of customization throughout the entire game, like I mentioned, and you know what? I'm just going in circles now. This game is just an absolute blast. I have no problem saying this is just a must play for legit anybody that likes video games. Like, I can't imagine somebody going like, yeah, I don't really like Super Mario Odyssey. Like, what? My next question would be like, what do you like then? And that'd also be a pretty big red flag, to be honest with you. Like, no. I know it might sound crazy to say, but I don't know how video games get much better than this game. Like, seriously, this is, in my opinion, one of the best games just ever made, and it probably is the best game you could play for the Nintendo Switch, along with, you know, Breath of the Wild. I think it's Super Mario Odyssey, and you know what, I just don't really got much to say anymore. Just play it. Just play it. If you're going to play one game on this list, and it's not Mario Kart, play this one. And so that's it for this video. Thank you so much if you made it to this part of the video. Comment bricks as in what you used to build a house down below. If you made it to this part, then I'll know you're a real one and you'll get a heart from me. I really appreciate it. I put a ton of time into this video. I've played all of these games. I love Mario, and I just appreciate any kind of sharing or comments or anything. I love you all. Thank you so much. Have a good one.